So hi everyone, my name's Tia Loudon. I am a senior security operations engineer at Microsoft. I have a background in live site incident response, security incident response, and also in vulnerability stuff, occasional oopses, and also in post-incident reviews as well. So I was one of the people that pulled together the current identity program for PIRs and retrospectives as it stands right now. So I thought I'd come and share some of our learnings and experiences with the program as a whole. So for those of you who are aware, and for those of you who maybe are new to the concept, we aim for a few things when we do PIRs, which is to make it as formal a review as possible, bring teams together, have a really open and honest conversation about what happened, warts and all, make sure that we're getting a full picture of everything that occurred during that event, and really focusing on the root cause. Blameless, key point, blameless but honest evaluation of the root cause. And so we really want to focus then on making sure that we discuss the shared learnings and the culture that surrounds what happened and what we need to do to move forward. And the reason for that is that a lot of the times when we have an event, whether it is live site or security, the learnings that we have go beyond the team that experienced the issue, and so we want to make sure that we distill all of that across the entire either division or organization as a whole, so that, you know, we don't see the same thing happen again. And so the output of the discussion really is to make sure that we have good security, resiliency, or process repairs that follow us into a new age. And so there are three key things that we want to aim for, which is to improve the service as a whole, to improve the development life cycle for the service, so figuring out where the process didn't go quite to plan, where it worked brilliantly. That is a very key point. Success is a very key point in post-incident review, so that we distill all of those learnings back in. We know what to do differently. We know what we can do to make sure that we have really, really positive futures ahead of us. And also speed up incident response. I work in incident response. For security now, people don't want to talk to me. The shorter the conversations that they have with me, the better. So it's for everyone's benefit, the fact that we speed up incident response. And the key point, don't make the same mistake twice. Make better mistakes, make new mistakes, do things that are more interesting, because there's nothing more boring than sitting through the same thing a second time over again. So what does this look like? Well, we have our incident. We do our post-incident review. We implement the learnings and we look at those, and then we have the improvements in place, and then we make a better mistake. And once we've made a better mistake, we have better incident response. And then we have a better PIR with better learnings and better improvements, and then we have an even better mistake. And after the even better mistake, we have an even better incident with even better PIRs and even better learnings with even better improvements, until we make the best mistake possible. And you can see the progression and the growth here. And we burn a data center. There we go. So to do this, we follow a pretty standard framework. We look at the overview of what happened. We do what went well, what didn't go well. Broader learnings either for beyond your team, for division, for the company as a whole. The timeline of the event, when things exactly occurred, so we can pinpoint where those learnings are going to take place. We do the 5 whys. Is everyone familiar with the 5 whys? Anybody not familiar with the 5 whys? Okay, so the 5 whys are essentially where we're going to work backwards. So we're going to do a demonstrative point of what the 5 whys are going to enable us to do, but we work backwards and we look at every single thing that happened and ask why that happened. So we'll look at that. And then the 5 whys leads to lesson learned. So everything should follow. So from a why, there should be a lesson, and from a lesson, there's a repair item. And so we're going to run this through, because this would be a very boring talk if I stood and talked to you for 20 minutes about a standard PIR framework and we didn't actually look at a genuine problem. And if any of you are expecting me to go into a Microsoft event or something that happened in recent history and PIR that, I'm afraid you are going to be sorely mistaken. So, for the purposes of entertainment, we are going to go into an issue from Star Trek: The Next Generation. So I'm a massive nerd, quite proud, metalhead and nerd. And I have seen every episode of Star Trek: Next Generation. This is my absolute life, and that's not a joke. I used to have a Star Trek transporter badge reel at work because it made me feel happy when I looked at it. So, for the purposes of entertainment, I hope you're all caffeinated and ready to go, because we are going to be taking a issue from Star Trek Next Generation and running it through this framework. So, to set the scene, we are now in the 24th century. The ARIA meeting room remains startlingly unchanged. We're looking at the NIST Cybersecurity Framework version 294.3, and we're all part of the United Federation of Planets now. So the Starfleet troop that is the support network for the Federation, they are the ones that defend the rule of law across all of the planets. And the Starship Enterprise, the ship that we're going to be looking at today, is captained by Jean-Luc Picard, and they are exploring the alpha and beta quadrants of the Milky Way. So, the issue that we're going to go through today is in relation to an upgrade. Seems fairly straightforward. We've all been through one of those, a software upgrade. Has it always gone to plan for everybody in the room? Yes? Yes. So, this is a third-party contractor, the Binars, that are going to be doing the upgrade on the ship. And what we know so far is that they're logged in, they're ready to go, and they've promised us some really cool upgrades as well to the holodeck, which, for those of you who are not as nerdy as me, is basically a giant virtual reality environment where you can do whatever the hell you want on board a ship. So they've promised some new upgrades to the holodeck so that we can go and have some new cool experiences. And so, unfortunately, during this upgrade, the holodecks did not get locked, and one of our senior officers, Riker, has just entered the holodeck in the middle of the upgrade cycle, and now Jean-Luc Picard, the ship's captain, is also now in the holodeck while the upgrade is going on. And during that thing, the upgrade has not gone to plan. The warp core is malfunctioning, so we're essentially looking at a nuclear meltdown in the middle of space. Sounds healthy. And few problems are starting to occur. So now we know that the warp core is malfunctioning. The engineering team on board are starting to evacuate the ship, and they're sending it out of port, with our senior officers still trapped inside the holodeck. Two of the most senior, most important people on the ship trapped. So, correct question to ask, what the heck was in that upgrade package? No idea. This is the security team saying, we don't know what's going on. The errors have gone, but we're no closer to understanding why or what's happening. And the ship is now on its way out of port, on self-destruct, but somehow, don't know how at this point, the senior officers have now made their way out of the holodeck and onto the bridge. So something has obviously released them. What we have found out since is that the contractors have actually uploaded their entire data bank to the mainframe on the ship. Mainframes will never die. So they've uploaded their entire data bank to the Enterprise. Bit of a problem. And the self-destruct's been overrode. So we saved the ship, no loss of life, and we now have an awful lot of explaining to do. So, how do we analyze that situation? Well, our lovely framework is going to help us out here. So, very, very straightforward framework. We're going to look at what went well, the broader lessons. We're not going to go through the timeline because that would take an awful long time. I will go into far too much detail about the contents of the episode, and it will be very boring for everybody in the room. We're going to go through the 5 whys, the lessons learned, and then obviously the repair items as well. So I hope you're all feeling inquisitive, because we are now the Federation Review Committee for the potential and borderline destruction of a multi-billion-dollar vessel and some fairly significant problems. And I am also well aware this episode was written in the 80s, so there is some creative license, but even still, we're going to go through it in the same way that we would any modern issue. So the overview. What we know is that there was a routine upgrade that was planned, and the contractors abused the privileged access to the mainframe. They uploaded malware, trapped 2 senior officers in a virtual reality environment. Bad. And they uploaded large quantities of data. And they did this to try and save their race in the episode, but that doesn't seem like a really fantastic reason to potentially destroy a ship. And they caused a warp core malfunction, an emergency evacuation, the near destruction of the USS Enterprise with senior officers on board. Straight to the point, not good. So, what worked well, what didn't go well? No one died. So that's a positive. No one died. But the senior officers were able to override the binars programming and the malware that was uploaded and return the ship to its original state. So the warp core didn't malfunction. We were able to save the lives of those on board. But what didn't go well is the contractors, the binars, had way too many privileges to be able to do the uploads that they would be able to do. And as evidenced by the fact that 2 senior officers were in a holodeck, clearly not well supervised during the process. So the 5 whys. Why did contractors have unscoped permissions to the ship entire system so where they could create catastrophic failure in the warp core? They uploaded all the systems on the ship and uploaded large quantities of data. Yeah. Tough questions. So, lessons learned from this. Well, we need to scope permissions to anybody who is not a member of Starfleet. Any contractor that's on board, scope their permissions, know what they're doing, revoke access. And so anything that results in an upgrade to a ship, anything that is going on that may impact the ship's functionality or the warp core, needs to have a max upload capacity and a pre-socialized plan. So security, engineering, senior leadership, everybody is aware of exactly what is going to go on. And if anything doesn't go quite as they were expecting, there is a plan in place to make sure that that doesn't happen again. So as you can see at the bottom here, we're developing a playbook to make sure that we can return the ship's state to its original way of living. We have detections and alerting for unexpected data upload so that we can address it at a point in time. Audit and access rights for Starfleet employees, because what we saw there was the fact that it took a bit of time, it seems, for folks to return the ship to its original state. Engineering couldn't do it. Otherwise, we would have said so, right? They had to evacuate the ship and send it out of port so that it could go and self-destruct. So they couldn't do it. Why is that? Senior leadership had to do it when they eventually removed themselves from the situation in the holodeck, which frankly they shouldn't have been in to begin with. But we also then need to make sure that they redefine the contract with the binars. Why couldn't they come to Starfleet and say, we've got a problem? Why were we only in a one-way relationship with this contractor and they couldn't ask for support? Why were the holodecks accessible during the upgrade? Well, we know that software upgrades can go wrong. Shocking. And using any form of technology during this upgrade, so the holodecks, put lives at risk. And we're going to go ahead and assume the fact that the Starship is not running on Kubernetes, where you can do upgrades at point in time, as the US Air Force proved when they did a software update while the plane was in the air. That's actually a really cool talk if anybody wants to watch that. We're going to assume this didn't happen in the 24th century because mainframes, but that's a bit problematic. And so for the repair items, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to prevent anybody from going in the holodecks in future. We're just going to remove them from existence for that period of time. And if anybody tries to enter a holodeck, because people are smart, they might try and bypass the security mechanisms in place, we're going to put an alert in so that Riker or whomever else doesn't try and get in when they know that they shouldn't. So why were senior officers in the holodeck during the upgrade? Well, I really had a lot of fun with the GIFs, I have to be honest. For those of you who are familiar with the story, they got trapped in the holodeck flirting with a woman who was not real called Minwet. We will not go into the ethical obligations or issues there. Go watch the episode, it is quite something. But why were they in there? Well, it appears that we had unclear rules and responsibilities of people who chose to stay on board. So senior leadership were just like, cool, I'm on board the ship. I don't need to do anything. I'm going to go and bugger off and have fun in a virtual reality jazz club and flirt with a woman. So what we're going to do, we're going to redefine the roles and responsibilities. And so what you can see so far, I hope, is that not every fix, change, or repair item is entirely related to the technology. It's the culture that surrounds the organization at the same time. It's us learning from our own human behavior as well to be like, I'm probably not going to do that again. And how do I share that learning outside? So there's going to be technological changes, there's going to be culture changes, and a whole load of other things that go into this. And so now we're at the root cause. So we all know now that this was a permissions management issue. But we have to work around that and go beyond what the permissions management issues have told us. So hopefully, and when I nearly said when I wrote this, when Rika wrote this, there was some feedback that this was perhaps a little bit too polite to the contractors who tried to save themselves by killing everybody else. But essentially, permissions management flaws meant that they could exploit access rights and put people's lives at risk in the process. So, Wesley Crusher. So, the whole point behind the PIR process is it is supposed to be uncomfortable. It's supposed to be unpleasant for at least the first half of the document, where you're being completely open and honest about everything that went wrong, all of the things that are going to make you feel potentially a little bit embarrassed. I know that I have when I've written a few, not just because the document quality was crap. Thank you. But it's supposed to be uncomfortable, because otherwise you're not going to learn. But then because you've got all of these repair items, all of these commitments, all of these things that you're going to do next, you also feel a little bit comforted at the end, because you know you have a path moving forward. At least that's how I generally feel, is slightly conflicted whenever I move out of these meetings, because it's like, oh God, but that's okay. So this issue was kind of minor in a number of ways for Starfleet, because they managed to fix it. They changed the ship state back to its original way so that they could do an upgrade that actually went well. So if you get the process right, if you get the review correct, then this becomes your bread and butter. You don't have to focus too much on it. You can focus on the things that really matter, like advanced persistent threat actors. For those of you who are not familiar, this is Q. He is a monumental pain in the arse and a complete nightmare. So if you get the little things right, if you get the processes so well defined that you don't have to think about it, you can have really open conversations, and you can spend more time focusing on the people that really cause an issue for you in your environment. So thank you very much. I know we've got a few minutes left, and if anybody has any questions or things that they'd like to share about how the process has worked in their environment, please do. And again, thank you for your patience with our slightly hiccuped start. So let us know. Thank you. I think everyone's asleep, aren't they? I'm not anymore. I was earlier. I was getting slightly worried, but...
We're all trying to find some Star Trek-related question to ask, like, I don't know, Janeway or whatever. Favorite TNG episode?
Oh, yeah, that was TNG. The episode, if anyone's wondering, is for the Binars, and it is called 1001, I think. It is by far one of the funniest episodes for all the wrong reasons, so I thoroughly recommend watching it. See, this is a problem, because there's like 20 odd seasons and I've seen every single season, and so I can't pinpoint it exactly to one, but this is by far the most memorable for me, bearing in mind what I do for a living and the amount of screaming I did at the TV at the time. My husband's like, can you chill out, please? It's just a TV show. Quite a while ago. But yeah, if anybody wants to reach out on LinkedIn or anything, just let me know, and I'll happily answer questions as well. But thank you all very much.